This is Season 3 of Flute Unscripted. Hi, I'm Caity Massoud, and I sit down with a new artist every week and share their uncensored stories with you. This podcast is brought to you by Flute Center of New York, the marketplace for flutes. Join us, subscribe, rate and review us, and please stay tuned to the end of this episode for a special Flute Center of New York discount code for our podcast listeners. Jake and Gabe Fridkis are the Flute Bros, literally brothers that grew up loving music and following their dream to become professional flutists. And dreams do come true, with Jake's position of Principal Flute of the Fort Worth Symphony and Gabe's recent win of the Assistant Principal seat. They are the first all-sibling principal section in a major symphony win section. Leading up to this moment, they had each followed different paths in their careers. Jake attended CIM and Yale, followed by audition wins in South Dakota and Fort Worth. Gabe left business school to study flute at Purchase, DePaul, land a fellowship at the Civic Orchestra of Chicago, and play principal flute with the Indianapolis Chamber Orchestra. Well, thank you guys for coming in. It's a real treat to have you here.
Definitely.
Thanks for
awesome
having
to be here.
Big congratulations to both of you. Right now, you had some nice accomplishments in your lives. Gabe, you just won the assistant principal position in Fort Worth. And Jake, you just got married.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, those are pretty great, awesome things. Congrats.
Exciting month of October.
Yeah, you guys are killing it.
It's a good month
Killing it
for
in
us
life.
both.
really flew by.
Yeah, and so was it always a goal of yours to be able to play together in an orchestra? I mean, it's hard enough winning a job, having an opening come up somewhere, getting the position, and then you add the extra layer on top of it of wanting to be in an orchestra together and make it work at the same time. So was that always a dream of yours, or is this kind of just luck?
I think that's definitely always been a dream for both of us, but kind of the dream that you can't really allow yourself to have practically because, as you know, jobs are few and far between, and if there's 3 positions in a section, how often do they both do 2 of them come open? So yeah, it's absolutely a dream come true, and we're super lucky and excited for this opportunity.
Yeah, I think we never really considered that as a possibility. When I first got to Fort Worth, Gabe would come and sub, and it was really fun to have that time. And we kind of, every time we'd say, we're so lucky we get to do this. We played Shostakovich 11, which has some big flute duets. Recently we got to do Daphnis. And we'd always be like, this isn't real life. This is kind of like something we're getting to do right now. But, when the real world kicks in, you'll be here, I'll be somewhere else or whatever. And we'll be happy that we had this opportunity. So now having, getting to, Gabe starts in December, but getting to do that full time, it's still kind of sinking in.
Yeah, you're still pinching yourselves.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll feel real until we're really in it.
Yeah, and in the routine of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And that position for a while was open, the assistant spot. So you were doing a lot of the legwork, the grunt work yourself, and playing a lot of concerts.
Yeah.
You've probably been anxious to have this seat filled and have the support.
I'm so happy. Well, yeah. So
what were you looking for in this position? What was, after you've had a lot of time, have the vacancy, what was a big ask from you?
Well, for me, it's really all sound. So, that was something that I developed early on in my own flute playing and audition taking, and just, what was important to me was a certain concept of sound, kind of on the more mellow side, and just kind of more of a blend with the winds. So that was something that going into, an audition, or even just when hiring subs, because I hired subs for 3 years to play second every week, different person. And, just generally people who could blend and, make a beautiful sound. That's my main priority. So I think that was, and it doesn't hurt that we both play on the same flute, kind of flute. We both have play Haynes and gold flutes, and, have a lot of the same teachers and influences. And then we also, tend to talk about sound way too much, and so our phone calls are very nerdy, but so we have similar sound concepts, so that's kind of an easy fit anyway.
Sure. I do think it's kind of interesting that both of you on social media are really active, and you're both kind of heavily promoting your Flute Bros brand right now. But neither of you really have personal websites. Was that a conscious decision? And do you think that the future of self-promotion and music is on social media, not so much on personal websites anymore?
I mean, I think definitely. I have almost never gone to somebody's website personally, so that was kind of where we started, with our decision to open a joint Instagram account. At Flute Bros. You can follow us. But,
shameless plug.
Yeah, right. I mean, might as well throw it in there.
That's why you're here.
But we kind of started it for fun. We had my wedding was coming up. Gabe had some auditions he was getting ready for, so we were kind of doing it as a side project just for fun. And we really started with some old pictures and some videos.
Yeah, we actually started with a stupid meme that
our first post ever was it was a Kanye West meme. Yeah. And that I took Snapchat and I edited the meme because I didn't know how to actually do it, and I fuzzed out. Yeah, it's still down. Yeah, but
I think I've got that question before from people, and I think right now the Flute Bros Instagram, the whole Flute Bros thing, it really is for fun. Mm-hmm. I think it'll always be for fun. That's kind of the idea that we do, we have our careers, our orchestral playing careers, but we do also just love playing duets together. I mean, we grew up playing duets together, and it's just something that makes music fun. That's one of the best parts about making music for me, is that we can just mess around and play flute together. Just putting that on social media.
And beyond that, I mean, I think if you want to...
Yeah, I was going to ask if there's any plans beyond the Instagram platform, or if you have any visions, or if it's just going to live there.
Well, honestly,
forever.
For right now, we're just kind of focused on our orchestral,
Gabe
getting started.
It's a big thing.
It's a big transition.
And that's going to take up definitely all of my energies.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as having social media versus a website trying to market a career, what I like about social media is you can put out a little duo video and some 12-year-old in a country all the way across the world will listen to it, and maybe they'll want to play it with their friend, or maybe they'll want to try flute, or so it's more of a way that you can reach people instead of with just trying to have a concert promotion kind of thing. That's not
instead of having people have to come to you, you're kind of
right. We're just kind of putting free music out there in the world that people can listen to and hopefully enjoy. We both think flute's really cool and really fun, and I think
the jury's still out.
But what do you think is?
Cool.
Yeah,
we think it's cool.
I hope so. You have careers in it, so I hope you like it a little.
If people see it, then they're more likely to think it's cool also.
Yeah.
But if you have to go to the concert hall, that can be overwhelming. So so just kind of putting it out there, so anybody can see what we're doing.
So is that an important idea for both of you with classical music? Is that a theme in your playing and your careers, that you do want to reach as many people and make music accessible?
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think that's so important.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't necessarily mean dumbing music down or just keeping it on Instagram. I think a lot of it is bringing people into the concert hall to have a significant experience.
Mm-hmm.
But where the attention lies right now, a lot of it is on social media. And if you can see a video of two guys having a good time playing flute, that's not nothing.
Sure.
I don't know. That's what we think. That's kind of our...
Yeah, absolutely.
Our idea.
I think that, obviously I'm an orchestral player, so I think coming to the concert hall is one of the most special things, and experiences that you can have. And I want more people to do that. But I also understand that a lot of people don't come from, the same kind of background that we did, which was, studying flutes, and music from the time we were very young and enjoying that and learning about it. Mm-hmm. So you have to learn about it to enjoy it, or, even just know it exists. So, when you put stuff out there, you never know who's going to see it. And hopefully that will inspire people to, like it like we do, you know, and then maybe they'll go see their symphony, and you know, or maybe their symphony will be playing Star Wars and they'll go see that, you know. That was the first orchestra concert I ever saw, was New Jersey Symphony playing Star Wars, and I love Star Wars, so you know, I was like 8 or whatever.
Indianapolis Symphony play Star Wars like 2 weeks ago.
And you were still as enamored, probably, right? Yeah. And do you think that it's because you know, you're both brothers, but you maybe have had this communication all your lives, and you're very comfortable with each other, and communicating, you know, as siblings and also as musicians is probably very easy for you? Do you think that's why people like seeing you play together? Is that charisma or the dynamic between two people? I think that's what I enjoy when going somewhere, is seeing the communication on stage. So,
well, I think that one of the benefits of live music, and kind of by extension, you know, like a live video kind of situation, is that it's very transparent. And when you're being honest, whether you're as a soloist or in a chamber setting, I think you gotta have to give people credit that they can pick up on that. Whether, you know, they know every single Mahler symphony or they've never heard a flute before, they can pick up on your honesty. So yeah, I do think they pick up on our dynamic, and that, you know, we are very close in real life. Like we're brothers, and we don't actually hate each other off Instagram. Like we hang out all the time.
And it's hard, I think, in sections to find. It's hard in sections to find not only people that share the same musical vision as you, but that you can also get along with. It's challenging. So it must be nice to be in a section where you can get along and be honest and give feedback.
Absolutely.
Are you both like, do you ever get weird about getting criticism from one another?
No. I mean, it's really annoying when Gabe critiques me, but, you know, besides that, you know, when we were playing Daphnis, I played, like, I don't know, one thing had like a Subito piano in the high register, and I played it like just completely forte, and Gabe like looks over at me and just like gives me this little gesture, like way less. I'm just like, you just correct me? No, we have a lot of fun, and, you know, we kind of, you know, we're very serious, obviously, in the orchestra, because it's a job, and it's, you know, it's important. You don't have that many chances to get it in rehearsal. But we also have a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And so I think that makes it easier for us to not get upset, you know, by a critique or whatever. And honestly, we barely talk about it. Usually it's just like, hey, you know, can we try that one more time? And then it's fine. You know, if you're listening, usually you don't need to be talking very much. So at least...
It's like a very Yoda kind of if you're listening, you don't need to do much talking. I like that.
I think there's also like a mutual respect thing, which goes in every section. Like if you respect your colleagues as musicians,
which you should.
You should. Yeah, no, you absolutely should. You just listen to what they're doing and you adapt to that. And then if you have a big problem, you know, some kind of fundamental artistic disagreement, then you can talk about that. But most of that is just done in the moment. And
in orchestra, usually the conductor is the one with the big artistic vision. So you kind of have to fit into that anyway. So, you know, I always think it's really important as an orchestra player to show up with as much of a vision as possible. You know, it's very easy to just show up and kind of play a cookie cutter version and then let the conductor tell you what to do. But I've always found if you can really bring your own ideas to the first rehearsal, then sometimes the conductor doesn't correct you as much, and they don't tell you what to do because they hear your version and they like it. And
you're convincing, I'm sure. Yeah.
Hopefully, you know, and that's the idea. And sometimes they'll hate it, and, you know, they'll say, no, never do that again. But
because that's your boss.
Right, that's your boss. But, you know, so for us, it's the same thing. You know, we're pretty spontaneous when we play. We try a lot of stuff, and I think we're both pretty good at catching, you know, we're pretty used to playing with each other. So we're good at catching each other's weird color change or, you know, crazy dynamic shift. Yeah. And so we like to do a lot of things in the moment and try stuff out and see what works. And then you fit it into what everybody else is doing. So
you were talking a little bit before about your upbringing and your family. Did you grow up in a very music-centered household?
Yeah. Well... Yeah, we very music centric. Neither of our parents are professional musicians, but all of the kids, I mean, the two of us and our sister all had classical music training from a pretty young age. I started violin, actually, unfortunately.
Oh, wow.
When I was 5. And then
why do you say unfortunately?
He was terrible.
It was so bad.
It's like the worst little 5-year-old violin
played
player.
for a year, and bombed playing hot cross buns in my first recital. And I like ran off the stage in tears, and I was like, "Mom, I want to quit violin." And she was like, "Okay, you can quit violin, but you have to play music." And then I switched to flute. But yeah, actually, our dad is a pretty incredible jazz pianist. He's completely self-taught, and that's not what he went into professionally. So yeah, it's a very musical household.
Well, also we just grew up listening to music all the time. Like my dad loves, well, both of my parents, but my dad loves audio equipment and recording, so he just was always playing music in the house all the time, and that was a lot of jazz and a lot of, actually my parents didn't really start listening to classical music until we got into it. And now they're like subscribers in Philadelphia. They go like every 2 weeks. They're
So it was more for your education, not to really have you pursue a career in music that they encouraged you.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah. No, I mean, honestly,
were they surprised that you've kind of both taken it this far?
No, they were super really supportive, and they've definitely helped us a ton along the way, and were our number one supporters. Yeah. But we were never really pushed into music. Actually, Gabe didn't even go into music.
Yeah. I saw that you went to business school for a little while, right?
Yeah, so I stopped playing flute for 3 years when I was like 18 to 21. Mm-hmm. And went to academic school, did academics.
Literally didn't play the flute at all.
I played in orchestra the first year, and then I just didn't pick up my flute for 2 years.
Yeah, and then
so I really went the other way.
And what drew you to business school?
Well, actually, ironically, one of the reasons that I chose American University is because they had a full orchestra, which a lot of the schools that I was looking at didn't. So I still wanted to play music. I bounced around quite a bit in that school. I think I started as a journalism major. I was a bio major at one point.
You're finding your footing.
Business school. Yeah. Yeah, I was young.
Yeah.
And after a few years there, I had switched around majors. I had worked a number of different internships. I worked in finance in New York one summer, and it just seemed like it wasn't really going anywhere for me, like emotionally, personally. I never really got into it. Mm-hmm. So after 3 years, I decided I was gonna leave school. And I was going to transfer to another school and kind of figure it out. Move back closer to home. And that summer, after I left DC, Jake basically, I guess through...
Well, so Gabe calls me one day, and he's like, "Hey man, like, I started playing flute again, like, last week, and I kind of think I want to play flute again." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool, like, in what way?" He's like, "I kind of want to go to school. Do you think I can do it?" And I was like, this is after 3 years of him really not playing the flute, definitely not practicing the flute, maybe being in orchestra a little bit. And I was like, "Yeah, of course you can do it, but just know that everybody's had 3 years of conservatory on you at this point." So then it turned out that I was at Yale studying with Ransom, and I was going to Aspen that summer. And I think I had applied at Banff where Ransom taught, and I turned down the spot to go to Aspen. So then Ransom had been he asked me or something, "Do you know anybody?" Because now that I wasn't going to take that spot, he was looking for somebody. And I was just kind of like, "Well, my brother just started playing again, maybe you would like." And Ransom was like, "Oh, that's awesome! Like, I'd love to hear him." So then Gabe sent a CD into Banff, and ended up getting a scholarship somehow.
Wow,
it was probably atrocious. I should listen to it. Anyway, so I went to Banff kind of on a whim. Like, I started playing again a little bit, and I went there, and it's gorgeous. I don't know if you've ever been.
No.
It's like an incredible facility, amazing food. It's in the Canadian Rockies. Yeah, and it was a masterclass with Ransom Wilson and Tara O'Connor.
And then you went on to study with her.
Yeah. So actually, I'll never forget the first time I played for her. She was I love Tara, and she's an amazing teacher. But I played Tafanel on Dantino, and I played the first few lines, and I thought it was really great. And she just She just goes through bar by beat by beat, just telling me just where my rhythm is wrong, which is everywhere. And so this is like my first time playing for anyone in years, and I was like, well, you know, I shouldn't be here at all. Like, this is ridiculous. You know, I ended up having lessons with her, and she's, you know, one of the so warm and such a great person. And yeah, by the end of that, I really loved studying with her, and I ended up going the next year to study with her at Purchase.
Well, she invited you at Banff. So at the end, you know, even though he thought he was doing terrible, you know, she said, you know, I'd really like to teach you. Obviously, Ransom doesn't teach undergrads; he just teaches the masters at Yale. So Tara invited him to study either at Bard or at Purchase.
So I ended up at Purchase.
Do you think that your experience, your way getting back into music kind of gave you a different perspective now that it was your second foray into the world? Did you have any sort of new appreciation for it or like renewed passion for it that you think?
I think so. Okay. I think that if I had gone directly into music, I always would have wondered what the other side was like. Yeah. You know, because I always did music my whole life. Mm-hmm. And I'm really thankful that I had that foray into the other side, and saw that, you know, for me at least, it wasn't what I wanted, and there was always something missing. And then when I came back to music, it was very fulfilling. I'll never forget my first day in music school. I went to all my classes, theory and ensemble, and I like at the end of the day I was like, wait, this is school? Like, I just get to do music all day and they're gonna give me a degree? This is incredible. And it was incredible.
I got an A in chamber music.
And no, I haven't looked back since.
Jake and Gabe are looking ahead to more audience engagement and interaction with their listeners. While their Instagram account is focused on light material and fun content, it is an escape from their otherwise demanding routines. And Jake, after your master's at Yale, you stayed on for an artist diploma, right?
Yes.
Did you what did you feel at the time about the artist diploma? Were you sticking around longer because you weren't ready to be done yet? And was that a good time for you to maybe get your ducks in a row and think about what to do after?
Well, so my approach to flute, I think, was a little different than a lot of people. And this was actually what Gabe ended up doing as well, and I highly recommend it. So in undergrad, I went to Cleveland Institute of Music, studied with Josh Smith, who's just amazing. And when I got to it's a big orchestral school and not a lot of chamber music. The wind chamber program was kind of a mess when I was there. And, I played some quintet, but that was about it. So I worked on a lot of orchestral stuff and a lot of solo stuff with Josh. And when we got to the end of my undergrad, he really encouraged me to go to Yale because Ransom was the other side of the flute world completely, studied in Paris with Ron Paul, soloist, chamber musician, all that stuff. And Josh thought it would be really good for me to go study with Ransom, go to Yale, which has a huge chamber music program, and kind of do that side of things so that I could bring it back to my orchestral playing. And at that point, I wasn't happy with how I played flute. I was happy with certain things about how I played flute, but there was, stuff that I wanted to work on. So I kind of, while everybody else my age was taking orchestral auditions, I didn't. So I took off, all those 3 years, I didn't take an audition all through my master's until my artist diploma. So actually, when I came back for the artist diploma, it was really, that was my year that I decided I was going to take auditions and I was going to, win a job and get my professional career in order. For my master's, I just used it as learning. Yeah. And I did all of Ransom's, technique work, the etudes, the articulation exercises, all the French school stuff that, he brought back with him.
So why are you saying that you recommend everyone does it? Do you think it gave you an edge to just learn first and then not put the stress of the audition?
Well, what I always say to my students is, it's not just an audition. When you start your job, you want to be the best that you can possibly be because, to win an audition is hard, but it's also not, it's not the full spectrum of flute playing, right. Because in orchestra, sometimes you have to play much softer than you would play in an audition or much louder or, do something that you wouldn't ever have to do in just a solo excerpt when it comes to blending and stuff. So I highly recommend, working on your flute playing, and don't look for little hacks in your excerpts and say, oh, let me just work on classical symphony every day for a year and then I can get through a round. That what does that do for you when you then get the job? And that's why you see people struggling in situations when they get there. It's really stressful
to stay there.
Well, and not even with tenure or not getting tenure or anything like that, but just being happy and being stressed out. And I was lucky that I always felt very comfortable when I got to my jobs, because it was very, I felt like I had already worked out those problems on the flute. So I felt confident that, obviously there's always stuff to improve, and I have plenty that I'm still working on to improve, and I will be working on that for the rest of my life. You don't have that feeling
like someo's going to find out that I shouldn't be.
Right, but it wasn't like, oh no, like I can't play soft in the high register,
right.
and I only, I used a different fingering for this excerpt so that I could kind of pretend that I can, and then gotten the job and I couldn't do it. So I think, and also then it for auditions, I think it gives you a different kind of approach, because I wasn't really like an excerpt guy, which is funny because now all I teach for master classes is excerpts. But I didn't really spend that much time working on them, except for during the summer with Mark Sparks at Aspen. We spent a ton of time on them, but for the most part I was playing solo rep, working on my actual flute skills, and then I brought that to the excerpts. So then I think that gives you a different kind of perspective on playing it. And in the end, the excerpts are music. So if you just spend time with 6 bars of a symphony for 3 years, you're kind of missing out on the point. So that's why I think Yale was amazing for me, and getting that totally different perspective from Ransom, and learning all the some of the French school stuff is really cool. And I think American flute players should check it out. Like we had this crazy triple tonguing seminar that lasted for 5 weeks, the first 5 weeks of every year. It was just brutal.
Triple tonguing for 5 weeks.
5 weeks. Every studio class we had all these triple tonguing exercises, and they're so hard. And like by the end, by my 3rd year, I could finally get through it pretty well. But
is there a tip that you learned?
Well, it was French tonguing, triple tonguing. So the tongue has to actually come out of the mouth. So it's like, just practice.
Yeah.
Like do it for 3 years.
5-week seminar.
Yeah,
that is the secret.
One of the hardest things. But just getting those skills, and not just spending my life in a practice room focused on, playing Peter and the Wolf. I think, then when you go to an audition, you have more of a chance to actually play music and, maybe do the things that you want to. So,
sure.
Yeah.
You both have been moving around a lot lately too. What is that feeling like when you win a job, you're there, and then you're kind of uprooting again, and you're leaving, and you're transferring around quite a bit? Right now you've kind of both, it feels like you've settled in a little bit, and this might be a little bit of a longer stay, but is it a little bit emotionally jarring to keep moving your place of home around all the time like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm really excited to be settled. After the last 2 years, I've been in Chicago for my master's with Mark at DePaul, but between auditions and the last year I was playing principal in the Indianapolis Chamber Orchestra, going out to Fort Worth to sub, going out to other orchestras around to sub, and it really, especially last year, it felt like I was, and probably actually was, on the road about as much as I was in Chicago. And then you add summer festivals into that. I was in Aspen this past summer and I wrote before, which is great opportunities, of course, but I was joking with someone the other day that like actually the longest amount of time I've been anywhere for the past 6 months was in Aspen.
Right.
Like that was more my home this year than anywhere else.
Well, in a beautiful home, so it's not so bad.
Not complaining.
It's one of the best homes you can have.
You were mentioning, your dad being involved in music. I did some digging. I found that there's actually a Gary Shocker piece that your family kind of commissioned from Gary for your dad.
Absolutely.
What's the relationship that your family has with Gary? It seems like you've been pretty close with him your whole lives.
He's like our family basically. He
came to Thanksgiving.
Years ago. He's so he was my teacher first when I was. So when I was
he was also like. he was like one of the first famous flutists, besides like James Galway, that we were aware of.
Yeah,
when we were like very young.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we went to NFA convention.
Yeah.
In Washington D.C. and he did a concert with Robert Dick. They each did half, and Gary, like, I think I was 12. Like, I was really young, and I just remember hearing Gary and being like, "Whoa!" Like, that's how the flute's supposed to sound. But then, you know, I was 12, we went home, you know, and kind of forgot about it. And then he was the guest artist at this flute day that we were doing up in North New Jersey. Yeah. And and I was playing Green Places, his concerto. And I think I was like 13 or 14 or 13, about to be 14. And I just really liked his music from the convention, so for some reason I picked out Green Places and I wanted to play it. Somebody had told me it was really hard, and that was my thing when I was young. I always wanted to learn things that people said were hard. And Gary was like signing CDs after, so I like walked up to his like signing music, and I was like, "Hey, I'm playing Green Places. Can I play it for you?" And he was kind of like, "Okay, sure." So I like whipped out my flute in the autograph line, and I played the third movement of Green Places because, you know, I was just like a stupid little kid, and he liked me for some reason, and he invited me to, you know, come take a lesson and, you know, do some of his classes, and then I started studying full time with him, and then Gabe started taking lessons with him pretty shortly after that. And
we would spend, well, I guess every 2 weeks we would go up to Easton to take lessons with him, and that's kind of how we got close. You know, our dad ended up becoming friends with him, and we would go. And
I mean, we were, it's just, you know, since we were kids. Actually, we were on our way over to Gary's right after.
Oh, nice.
We're gonna go. He just wrote a 2-flute and harp trio. We're gonna go read it.
You're gonna go record.
Yeah,
that sounds really nice.
But he's, you know, he was like our first supporter, and he wrote us a piece when we were. I was 15 and Gabe was 12 or 13, and he wrote us a duo that we got to premiere at the convention, and, you know, he was always like a very supportive of us from a young age, and he ended up just being kind of, you know, basic, you know, non-blood related family,
right?
You know.
One last question for the two of you. You know, you're Flute Bros. You're always touting this supportive, great relationship that the two of you have. Was there ever any rockiness growing up, being, you know, close, pursuing very similar goals, being in the same field, going for the same kinds of jobs? Have you ever felt any sort of tension between the two of you, or is there ever comparisons that sometimes can bother you? Like, do you ever compare yourselves to one another, or do you have to kind of squash that right away?
I mean, honestly, I think we have more contention in, you know, playing baseball and, you know, who is gonna, you know, be a better pitcher or hitter. Yeah, you were a better pitcher. I was a much better hitter though. So whatever. Anyway, no, actually, weirdly, we haven't really ever been very competitive, and I think some of that had to do with Gabe taking time off, because when he came back, you know, I was like already kind of on my way. You know, I was like a year away from, you know, getting my first job, and stuff like that. So it was kind of like we were never in direct competition.
It's not like you were at auditions together at the same time. So
even if we were, it's not. I don't know. I think having a brother who plays flute, kind of takes the edge off of that in general. Like, I have a lot of friends, you know, obviously we all do, a lot of flute playing friends, and I think having a brother who plays flute kind of like makes me treat them the same as my brother. So I'm just, you know, I think there's spots for everybody out there. You know, if you work hard, you keep at it, you'll probably do well, and you don't know what spot that's going to be. So like the
or
idea
when it will
of
be either,
trying to
right?
compete directly with somebody is, to me, just makes no sense.
I mean, that's a question that I've gotten a lot. I'm sure we both have through life, and we actually have never taken the same audition, not on purpose, just kind of like through scheduling.
Yeah. There's a couple that,
but there were a couple that we almost did.
That.
Anyway, but I believe this is true, that if we were ever in the same audition situation, you know, of course you go on an audition to win, but if I'm not gonna win, I would obviously want Jake to win, right? And then if you just extrapolate that down through all of your connections, I think that's a good way to go through auditions. You know, like, then of course you'd want your friends to win, and then of course you just want someone to win.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. It's the most frustrating when no one wins,
Yeah,
or when it's
absolutely.
yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
like us
Absolutely.
versus. It's not us versus anyone, but like in a way, we all are in this together, right? We all worked really hard to get here, and we're all playing the same excerpts, and like they're gonna choose someone, and it that's up to them.
Yeah.
And auditions aren't really personal. I think that's something that's important to remember. Is that
Easier said than felt.
absolutely?
Yeah.
It always it sucks to lose, and we've all lost plenty of auditions.
Yeah.
But if you try to remember, if you just do the work and you improve, that's a victory.
That's a win right there.
Yeah, in its own. And if you can kind of be happy for other people, be supportive of other people, then your community expands.
Yeah.
And we have an amazing community of friends, who play all over the country, who are fantastic flute players. And I'm happy for them every time they do something, whether it's playing a concerto, winning a job, having a recital, one of their students does well in something, whatever it is. I think if you can look at it from that perspective of, we're all doing something that we're passionate about. You're not the one making the decision. It's not your job to judge yourself when you go play an audition. So you go in, you play. Sometimes they like what you did. Sometimes they like one of the other fantastic flute players who's there.
Right.
That's okay. It's okay to not be picked by every person who hears you. So I think that I think having each other around and going through the ups and downs of not only our own auditions but the other ones' auditions and the other ones competitions and stuff like that. Not that we ever did competitions, but that kind of thing. It makes you have a little bit of a different perspective.
Sure.
And also to like bring it back to Flute Bros, I think that's a nice way to, as musicians, like we're all practicing so much and like working so hard, and when you're in the audition circuit, it all gets channeled into that. So like this is also a vehicle to like, we can work on something else at the same time.
Yeah.
Be like, no, we're like still
Give yourself a
playing some fun flute stuff, and
Right.
like we can put that out there and let people appreciate it instead of all just being focused into this process.
Fun fact about Flute Bros, that was formed at Aspen because we were both students there together, and just everybody called us Flute Bros. So it was naturally born. Yeah, we didn't think of it. I don't know who did. It just kind of like became a thing, and then
and now it's stuck.
Yeah,
now it's stuck, and now we're stuck with it.
Yep.
We have embraced it fully.
Gotta own it. Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for coming in today. It was really great getting to know both of you, and all the best of the luck in the future with Flute Bros and with your own individual endeavors.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for, and since we plugged ourselves, it's pretty cool to be in Flute Center in New York. We grew up, an hour outside in New Jersey, and so we've been coming here since we were like 8,
loyal fans.
Yeah, so it's cool to be here and to do this, and we love the podcast. Listen to a lot of it. It's fantastic.
And now you're a part of it too, which is really cool.
And I think it's so cool
honor to be here.
Actually, Demare's episode, that was a personal favorite of mine. I thought, hearing some of these people talk about the same things that you're going through or what you're looking forward to. Stefan's episode, Emily Bynum. Like listening to these people that they've done so much.
Yeah.
I really look forward to all the new seasons. So thanks for having us on.
Thank you. While I do hope Jake and Gabe will come back to visit us here at Flute Center very soon, I really wish for them a fun and rewarding career in Fort Worth, rehearsing and performing in the concert hall and recording fun videos for Instagram. As a concert goer at Jake's Yale degree recital noted, the music's beauty was heightened by the sight of these siblings. I will cherish the memory of the emotional high point, Jake and Gabe smiling and playing together. Thank you, Jake and Gabe Fridkis, for stopping by Flute Center and making time to talk. This episode features a recital performance of the Doppler Andante and Rondo, and a very special feature from when they were just 15 and 12, premiering Gary Schocker's French Toast at the 2005 NFA convention. This has been an episode of Flute Unscripted. This podcast is sponsored by Flute Center of New York. Visit their website at flutesforsale.com for the largest selection of new and pre-owned instruments. Use this season's promo code LISTEN for a special deal of $50 off any purchase of $4.99 or more. You can follow the Flute Center on Instagram and like them on Facebook to stay up to date on the latest events and masterclasses. Special thanks to our owner Phil Unger, the Flute Center team, and Stefan Huskoldson for our theme music.